Okay, we hit broadcast.
Great. Are we live, Brad?
Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the presentation of the AEA Teaching and Learning Plan. This will be an opportunity for us to go over some of the key features of the plan that will guide the reopening, as gradual as it may be, of Einstein within our community. Before we get started, I think we have an announcement, an interpretation announcement.
Sí, muchas gracias. Buenas tardes a todos. Les queremos dar la bienvenida. En esta reunión vamos a hablar de los planes de reapertura y de las medidas que vamos a tomar. Les queremos invitar a que si quieren escuchar la junta en español, en un momento va a aparecer en su pantalla un botón donde dice español. Lo único que tiene que hacer es hacer clic y escuchará la junta en español. Muchas gracias. Las preguntas y respuestas se contestarán por escrito en la parte de abajo de su pantalla donde usted vea una Q y A. Ahí se pueden hacer todas las preguntas que usted necesite y le contestarán. Muchas gracias. We're ready.
Thank you. So we're going to begin. We thought it was appropriate to kind of guide this presentation today with a virtual PowerPoint, just to kind of keep us organized with our thoughts. Before we begin, we have our elementary principal, Ms. Greta Bouders, will be presenting items related both to the elementary as well as both, and our middle school principal, Mr. Andreas Trakas, will be presenting about the middle school as well as AEA in general. So we're going to kind of tag team this presentation, the three of us. Brad, we will advance to the PowerPoint now. And just as a point of reference, we will be recording today's presentation. It will be available on the AEA website, aeacs.org. We are also broadcasting today live on YouTube. Next slide, please. So once again, welcome. Thank you for taking the time today or the time asynchronously whenever you have an opportunity to watch this presentation. The information that we're going to talk about today is all contained in a fairly lengthy, about 18, 19 pages long plan that the principals and I, with some input from other stakeholders in the organization, put together over the last several months as we continue to monitor this pandemic situation. It's guided by state and local mandates and guidelines. So we really had to balance our experiences, for example, from summer school, which we opened in a blended capacity and then had to roll back to entirely online. We took those lessons. We looked at examples from around the state. And we know that we have to stay within the rails of the guidelines that have been established for us from Sacramento. We also, at the front end, would like to acknowledge that there is no such thing as a perfect plan. It's impossible. There's no plan that's going to work for everybody in every situation. And so we ask that you put on those lenses when you read this plan and when you watch today's presentation, and understand that we acknowledge that this is a living document and that undoubtedly changes will have to be made as we continue to adapt and get better. At the front end, I'd also like to just acknowledge that specific details around times and schedules and implementation of the new Canvas learning management system, we're still working on those. Our teachers have been off on a well-deserved summer break. And so some of this work is just kind of rebooting as folks are coming back online. And so rather than administration unilaterally coming up with schedules, we wanted to have deep input on that. And so after today, we will be scheduling additional sessions like today's, but school specific. So there will be at least one related to elementary school and the specifics of schedules and implementation of Canvas, et cetera, and then another one for middle school. So I think that everything that goes to say that not everything will be answered today. It's impossible for us to answer all of the questions today. I would like to thank everyone who has, for the last several months, been sending emails and messages to AEA, to myself, to the principals, with requests, recommendations, guidance, examples. We've actually received so much input, actually, that we were unable to respond to each specific email with any level of specificity. But we wanted you to know that we've condensed those questions, and they will be reflected in the FAQs section after the principals go over some of the more specifics of the plan. We'll get to the FAQs. We've divided today's presentation up into broad categories that reflect content from the AEA Teaching and Learning Plan, as well as mandates and guidelines from Governor Gavin Newsom from the 19th of July, where he gave a seminal press conference and informed counties that were on the COVID watch list, that is, counties with a contagion rate of over 100 cases per 100,000, that those counties would be placed on that list. And because of that, schools were not allowed to open in a normal capacity until we fell off the list for 14 days. So we've really condensed those legal guidelines into today's presentation, as well as specifics from our plan. Finally, you have a Q&A feature. If you're observing this, if you're watching this, wherever you may be watching this presentation. And so we will be gathering those questions. And if we have not already answered them in the presentation, time allowing, we will get to those. We've committed to an hour for today. And so it may be possible that some of those will be carried over to a further conversation in the future. Okay, next slide.
Good afternoon, everyone. Daily live interaction with a credentialed teacher and other students is required through video or telephone. That's something that was brought forth by Governor Newsom in his message, something that we're going to be incorporating into our plan. Also, morning and or afternoon check-ins and daily whole group and or small group live instruction, and the focus is on the live instruction, whether it's going to be an intervention piece where we're providing supports, but to make sure that our students have that human connection is so very, very important in this plan. The combination of mandatory and optional meetings. Also to note, a blending of synchronous and asynchronous learning opportunities to provide flexibility for our students and their families. We can't assume that everybody's going to have access at a specific certain time. So within this plan, you'll see a blended approach through the lens of equity to develop synchronous and asynchronous learning opportunities and offer the flexibility for our families and our students. School-wide curriculum will be delivered through Canvas. We looked at developing a much more robust online learning platform, and we are committed to the Canvas program because we believe that it can provide for us a multitude of other opportunities that the other programs couldn't. And for our students as they transition into high school and later on into college, Canvas is a preferred platform by many high schools and universities throughout our country. Our curriculum will be based upon Common Core standards and our IB program framework. That's standard practice, and we'll see that reflected in our work as we prepare and for our plan and in the delivery of our plan. Enrichment opportunities will be available weekly, whether there will be art and design, music, dance, theater, whatever it might be. It's very, very important that we provide these opportunities for our students. We want to be able to have a blended approach. So giving them the opportunity to have those enrichment opportunities and the opportunity to connect with that, whether it's going to be daily or weekly, is something that will be reflected as well. Schedules will be determined. Dr. Charette also said, once we can get the feedback from our teachers. We're pretty close, but we need to be able to get that feedback and that piece so we can be able to wrap up our schedules and present to our community. And that should be coming forth in the next week to 2 weeks. Next slide, please.
Welcome, everybody. Hi. Thank you for joining us today. Before I even begin the slide, I just want to share that all our teachers are really getting excited to start this school year, although of course, like every school year, there's nerves involved, especially this a little more than in past, because it is a new experience, but we're ready to go. And so thank you for joining us today. One of the elements that was required by the state guidelines would be a minimal instructional time. And again, this is minimal. They are actually based upon the current instructional minutes mandated by the state, even during the school day. And so the grades, kindergarten is 3 hours, grades 1 to 3 was 3 hours and 50 minutes, and grades 4 through, for us, 8 is 4 hours per day. And again, we say minimum of this. But based on the surveys that we took during the distance learning in the spring, this is very consistent with what most families said that they were doing and what most families thought was acceptable. So that's not to say there isn't room for flexibility in this, but that is the expectation of the minimal amount of time that students are engaged in learning. We also want to make sure that we are able to provide both online and offline activities, because we know the importance of balancing screen time, especially, looking at the developmental ages of our students. Teachers, however, are working their 8 contractual hours, and what they've learned from the distance learning was more than that. But consider that in addition to their live teaching time, they are spending a lot of time collaborating with their teams. They are spending a lot of time creating content, we'll be talking about assessing students and providing feedback. And so it will not be that teachers are FaceTiming with 6 hours a day with our students. We'll talk about that later, because of all the other activities that they are also required to do. Next slide, please.
In the spirit of a program assessment accountability, we started to have the conversation last spring that we needed to look into a program that we can make sure that we can keep our fingers on the pulse of connectivity. And in the spirit of connectivity, because we need to ensure that all of our students and our families are connected, we needed to find a program where we can be able to monitor attendance through every day. So attendance will be taken daily through live instructional meetings through Canvas. Canvas will be able to provide that for us. Data will be shared with the state, and also attendance could impact further funding for our school. So attendance, making sure that our students are connected each and every day to each and every class, is so important, and we need our families and our community support with that being said. So next slide, please.
Okay, another mandate from the state, service students in need. And so obviously that is part of our plan and what we do on a daily basis. On the one level of using teaching strategies and tools to support all learners so that content is accessible, using videos, Loom videos, text-to-speech options, speech-to-text options. These are options so that students can access the content. Canvas provides a lot of opportunity for embedding apps into the platform that allow for learning to become more accessible. We will continue to provide our special education services and all related services to those students, as well as provide small group support and intervention via our teachers, aides, and support staff. As mentioned by the governor as well, a special consideration will be given to our special education students, our English language learners, our socioeconomically disadvantaged students, and our homeless and foster youth when it comes to determining the on-site learning phases. Phase 2, which is introducing some on-site learning to some of those student groups that are most in need of some of that online, on-site, in-person learning. Those will be considered in both phase 2 and phase 3 as we move to a hybrid phase. Next slide, please.
Again, it goes back to the conversation that we were having previously, but preventing disengagement and being proactive in our practice. Disengagement is defined by students being absent 3 or more days in a week. Teachers or office staff or support staff will attempt to re-engage students through phone calls, through home visits from counselors, deans, social workers, and school psychologists. And Canvas is able to capture student engagement. So we can tell through Canvas what our level of our student engagement is, if they're taking part in class discussions, if they're interacting with their projects and what they're supposed to be doing. So it's a very live program for us in the spirit of accountability and being able to assess our students' engagement. That's why we felt that, in going back to Canvas, that Canvas was the direction that we needed to go for online learning platform. But we need to do everything we can to ensure that our students are connected and engaged, and we have a tool that we can monitor that engagement. So next slide, please.
We are committed to grading and assessing students as developmentally appropriate. These assessments will be ongoing throughout the year. Canvas also has the ability to track and communicate assessment data. It has a richer system for creating assessments and grading and monitoring that. We are also going to be working with our current benchmark assessment, which is the MAP or NWEA that we have been using for several years in grades 2 through 8 to capture assessment data and student progress and monitor student progress. Report cards, graded report cards will be provided twice a year. Right now, in terms of the statewide testing, the CASP is yet to be determined. We have not heard anything from the state as to whether or not the state mandated tests will be required in the spring. So teachers are committed to making sure that this is ongoing and formative assessment so that it can drive their instruction and then in turn support the small group and interventions needed for students to make progress. Next slide, please.
Hold office hours. In the spirit of meeting the needs of our students and meeting the needs of where they're at their level, and providing intervention and support when needed, teachers will hold weekly office hours for students to provide intervention and support. If a student doesn't get a concept, is confused about a lesson, might need some reteaching, that's why the reason why we'll be having those live office hours, to provide an additional layer of support and intervention and support for our students. Parent office hours will be provided when appropriate, depending on the age of the student and the specific academic needs. Next slide, please.
We want to make sure we continue to monitor the well-being of our students and of ourselves and our staff, meaning our teachers, through our socio-emotional learning opportunities that will be provided through daily instruction and interaction. And one of the mandates of live instruction that includes both a certificated teacher, but also has kids seeing other kids each day. And so we want to provide that opportunity. We know they need that to feel connected. And there's kids who feel more comfortable whole group or bigger groups. There are kids who feel more comfortable in small groups. So we want to provide a variety of opportunities for our students to find that connection and have those conversations with their teachers about their well-being. We know this has been hard on many of our students. We will also continue to provide supports through our counselors, our social workers, our dean of students, our school psychologists on an individual or group basis based on the needs that arise. And we want to make sure parents and families have the information and have those contact information so that they can reach out if their student is in need. Next slide, please.
Providing devices and providing our students the tools that they'll need to be connected. All students will be provided laptops and high-speed internet access as needed, free of charge. We also committed to providing ongoing tech support to maintain those devices and to help support our students and their families with their devices. Next slide, please.
We will continue to provide nutrition and meals for our students. As you enrolled or re-enrolled, you were asked to fill out the lunch form. It is a state required form, which gives data to the state. Within that, you were able to pick up meals at the middle school daily between the hours of 12 and 2. These are grab and go meals so that you will be taking them. Students won't be eating them, at least during this distance part of the learning here at school. And they will be able, breakfast and lunch will both be provided. Those who will be giving out the food will be practicing all the social distancing guidelines as recommended by the health and state powers that be. Next slide, please.
Health and safety for teaching and learning. Health and safety of our students is our number one. Hello? That's okay. Mistakes happen, but the health and safety of our students is the number one priority. And being able for us to follow the state, the local, the federal mandates, as far as social distancing, which will be practiced whenever school is in session, before school and after school. Being able to monitor and provide protective equipment and training for our staff and our students. Screening and health monitoring for students, staff, and visitors, which will happen before school, during school, and if needed, after school. And campus cleaning and deep cleaning. Those are some things that we've outlined and we've developed in our plan, and some things that we also have in practice currently. Next slide, please.
So this brings us to frequently asked questions. We attempted to distill from questions that we received over the intervening weeks and months since the end of the previous school year. So we'll kind of alternate in taking these. I'll take the first one. Why are teachers not doing all day or multiple hours of Zoom sessions? So first of all, I want to acknowledge the challenges of laying a distance learning paradigm on top of working families, whether those families are working from home or whether they're working from a remote location that they have to leave to go to every day. So we realize this is complicated, but we've learned through a couple different areas. First of all, summer school, as well as the springtime, while we had first instituted the AEA distance learning plan that extended sessions of Zoom or any other tool with online video teaching becomes quickly untenable for students in the elementary. And I'm pretty sure that Principal Bowders can speak to this more clearly than I can, but teachers were finding that after about 30 minutes, it was really difficult to maintain engagement of students. And so for those reasons, as well as the burden on teachers or anyone else, and including parents for the younger students who are sitting next to their students as they are sitting there on the live sessions, we've moved away from that being a model. So we're not going to have 8 in the morning, everyone's logging on live and then staying live till 3:30 in the afternoon, all on live Zoom. That is not going to be the model here. So it's really a matter of balance, health, and trying to get as much as we can out of shorter sessions and balancing the synchronous and asynchronous. Principal Bowders and Principal Trackus, perhaps you could add anything additional related to your respective schools on that one.
Sure. You know, what we're looking at for elementary is having more of small group, cohort group Zoom sessions. Teachers found that having 9 students at a time was very, very manageable because that's what you can see on a Zoom screen. As you know, having a whole group where you're on 23, 27 kids, having to scroll back from screen to screen was very, very complicated. And just the students were very much less engaged because they didn't have direct face with the teacher at all times. So we're moving more to small group. We do want to provide full group opportunities for whole class check-ins, whether that's in the morning and the afternoon, but really looking how to maximize some of that smaller group instruction through Zoom, through those live meetings.
And the foundation for excellent teaching and learning is a strong and powerful lesson plan. We would like to be able to support our staff to be able to develop those lesson plans, have some common norms, be able to have a blended approach when it comes to live teaching and independent work, and also encourage some project-based learning opportunities for our students. And those are the conversations that we're having at the middle school. Now more than ever is a perfect opportunity for project-based learning and how we can be able to develop norms for all of our teachers and for our staff, and how we can reflect strong lesson planning through Canvas to make sure that we have clear what and whys, connections to the real world, develop the relevance behind our teaching, and offer that on this wonderful platform that we think is wonderful through Canvas in a blended approach will support our students and their families.
The second one is, will students and staff be tested for COVID-19? That's kind of in reference to, is a negative test a prerequisite to starting any sort of in-person interaction? The short answer to that is that's not a requirement. The practicality of testing 1,400 students and 150 staff members and then having to repeat the tests perhaps on a daily basis and get the results, it's not something that at this point we are considering. That having been said, we do encourage members of our community to abide by the guidance of their healthcare professionals. Many of the free county testing centers, as well as some of the for-pay centers, are prioritizing their testing for cases where there are either symptoms or confirmed or suspected cases of exposure. And so we would be encouraging those people to follow through on those protocols privately. In addition, in the plan, we outline protocols for when staff or students are exhibiting symptoms. And so there may be cases on an individual, really specific case where we're following an individual case through with a family and making sure that we get a doctor's confirmation of someone being symptom-free and not being contagious before they can return to the campus.
Will students be required to come back to school in phase 2, 3, and 4? And so for phase 2 and 3, the answer to that is no. We are not going to require that students have on-site. That is, for those who know the phases, phase 2 would be some small groups of our special populations. Phase 3 is a hybrid approach. So during those 2 phases, we would still offer a distance learning plan. With stage 4, it might not be up to us to decide. That's when all schools can go back to on-site learning. We really need to wait for the state guidelines and guidance from the governor on what that's going to look like and what's going to be mandated. So definitely more to come. We will follow whatever we were required to do, but are committed to know that there will be potentially family that may be compromised. We would be setting up independent contracts and offer accommodations should they need to be made.
On that phase topic, I just want to reiterate, and we set it in the actual teaching and learning plan that we sent out and is posted on the website, but we will be starting the year in phase 1. And so phase 1 is entirely distance learning. And then you'll see when you look at the plan, the criteria for moving from 1 to 2. And then the real big jump is from phase 2 to 3 in terms of the county being removed from the COVID watch list.
The next question, can my child be enrolled at AEA if they're out of state or country? We know and we're very, very aware that this has been a very, very difficult time for many of our families. And our focus is to be able to be as flexible and as supportive of all of our families, our entire AEA community. And we know that there's been certain instances where there may have been a family or student that has had to leave the city for a week or 2 weeks or possibly longer amount of time. We want to be able to remain as flexible as we possibly can and keep our students and our families connected. But as we begin to go back into our the next phases and as students begin to come back on campus, we'll be messaging out to some of those families that may have extenuating circumstances and are out of state or out of the country, that there's going to be a week flex period where we're going to want to be able to make sure and ensure that the students are back here at school. So I hope that I've provided enough for that question. But again, the spirit of it is to be able to support our parents and our students and make sure that they stay connected. But when it's time to come back to school, it's going to be time to come back to school.
Will paper or hard copies of materials be made available? This was a frequently asked question, especially for our younger learners. And the answer to that will be yes. We will devise a system to pick up materials, again, practicing social distancing at specific times. We did a little practice run and returning some of the classrooms that were full, some pickup items that we did a couple weeks ago, just to see what kind of system we would be able to put in place for that. So we'll work further on that and develop schedules when teachers have time to plan units, get materials all ready, make sure our math books are in, so that we can limit the number of pickup opportunities or need for pickup. So once teachers have time to collaborate and plan and develop materials, there will be opportunity for that. This one's mine too. This is a big one. How will my child be supported in German? I know that this, as the elementary, more of an elementary issue just in terms of the immersion program. We understand that it is very difficult for those of you who do not speak German at home to support your child in their learning. We understand that. This is an unprecedented time. We're looking at creating a little shift in our model. In years past, we had an English week and a German week. A lot of the feedback we got from parents over the end teachers over the spring and even summer was like, how do I get my child engaged in German week? They're disengaging if they're not speaking the language at home. So rather than have an English and German week, German activities will be embedded in daily, and they will be differentiated. So that students are able to pick. So our teachers are going to create content in a very collaborative way. Our German teachers will create content that will be available each day at a differentiated level for your child and you to choose what you can do. The focus for our little ones, especially our K and 1 who are just starting with us. So kindergarten parents, thank you for being here. We're super excited you're here, and I know this is going to be hard, but our kindergarten team and our first grade team are phenomenally dynamic. They will be providing German lessons, same through videos, through live lessons, through music, to really engage your children in German with the basic vocabulary and letter sounds. And so that we are committed to. The older kids who are at a higher level and parents find it probably a little more difficult to support, who don't speak the language at home, will have those differentiated options on a daily basis for your children to participate in. Plus, we will have, we have 8 German aides and teachers who will be providing some small group support and activities. I know it's a challenge, and this is not to say when we know when we come back, we're going to have a lot of different levels of German. We understand that. We are not changing our overall model. We are still going to be an immersion school, but this is definitely going to be a hiccup in that model because of where we are right now. It is really impossible to make sure everyone is getting the same amount of German engagement as we can when we have our babies with us. So it is a hiccup. We will work with you to make it as doable for your families as possible, but still want to stress the importance of language and make it a daily activity for your students.
Will my student be able to finish the DSD test? So piggybacking on what Principal Bowders just said, we are fully committed to supporting our foreign language acquisition, and we'll be fully committed to following DSD protocol. Right now, we're in the process of developing a plan, which is going to take best practices, social distancing, all of the above into concern so we can be able to provide a safe environment for our students to be able to finish that DSD test. So we're fully committed to that. There'll be more information that will be coming out shortly.
I'll take the next one, which is what's AEA's policy on pods. It's been a growing conversation of late across the country in terms of small semi-autonomous groupings of students, sometimes in a face-to-face capacity outside of the school building. And we've received some significant feedback that parents have organized with other parents and into such learning pods, and in some cases contracted with tutors and those sorts of things. While we understand the spirit behind that and the sincere desire to help our children learn and help also provide some face-to-face time and social time with other students, we are unable to authorize or support in any school-wide way the creation of pods, because if we can't do it for all of the students, then we're unable to do it for smaller groups. So it would basically fall into the category under more normal circumstances of tutoring, for example. We know that at any given time, there are probably dozens of families in one content area or another contracting with individual private tutors to support their children outside of school. And while, again, we understand that, we could never mandate that everyone get tutoring or somehow include that into instructional time or instructional minutes within AEA.
Last question, how will parents and students get trained on Canvas? One of the attractive features of Canvas was how user-friendly it was for our students, for our teachers, and also for our families. That being said, we're going to be able to send out messaging and some links through Canvas to help support our parents in developing, knowing, and understanding the Canvas program. We'll also be having a parent university, which will help provide those supports in the first, I would hope, in the first month of school. So more information on that will be coming out. And also, just an FYI, Canvas also gives us the opportunity to consolidate programs. So we'll be going away from Management, and we'll be using Canvas as a one-stop shop for our parents to be able to get information, to check in on a classroom, to see what's happening in a class, to be able to know what's happening with the students' grades and assessments. But more parent training and support is coming via Canvas and also through Parent University.
I think there is one more question on another slide. So why are we not applying for a waiver for elementary school to provide in-person learning? This was a mandate or an option that was set forth as a school. We have decided that we are still looking at the county guidelines and the health numbers and the COVID numbers. And right now at this time, we don't feel that confident that we are able to provide an online in person that's safe for all of our teachers and all of our students to return to. Should those numbers start to change, we will reconsider this. But right now, with the uncertainty, is not something we are able to wanting to risk right now.
So in the interest of time, and we have about 17 minutes remaining, and we have 48 questions and counting in the Q&A thread. And so we'll do our best to move through these. Some have been already, I believe, answered in the presentation from the time they were submitted 45 minutes ago or so until now. So I'll start, and then maybe we can just rotate to Principal Bowders and Mr. Trackus in looking down this list. There are a number of questions about whether the Canvas system will be available to both schools. Some, I think, are asking whether it's available in middle, others whether it's available in elementary. The history of the rollout of that is it actually started in middle school. It was something that early on in the school closures seemed to make more sense at the middle school level, when I think we naively thought that this would be shorter than it really ended up being. And we realized that some of the tools that we had been using in the short term were not robust enough and required so much work at the teacher end, so much work at the parent end and the student end, that it was unsustainable in the long term. So this turned from a sprint into a marathon. And because of that, we're now rolling out Canvas across both schools. And we're in the process of ramping up access and training. And it will actually be something that teachers and classroom assistants will all have access to and be trained in. So again, across both schools.
I have a question regarding just our incoming kinders and if there'll be an opportunity for them to meet their teachers. We'll be providing a kinder parent orientation to be calendared very shortly. Our kinder team is going to be working on a plan of how to get our kids. We have some Schultütens to give to kids, which are part of the tradition of a German student, a German child in Germany, to get on their first day. So yes, we are looking for an opportunity to have students receive, pick up materials and get their Schultütens, more of that to come.
There are some questions regarding schedule and being able to develop a schedule in order for us to be able to help and support our parents as they go back to work, and how we can support our students and our children. Yes, we are working on developing the schedules. They will be out to our community as soon as possible, hopefully within the next week, maybe a few days longer than that. So the answer is yes to that. Some of the questions that we have is what students can use Canvas to. So some of the benefits to Canvas and why a student might benefit from working in Canvas: they can access class materials, calendars, assignments, quizzes online using any device or any browser. They can track their progress through ongoing teacher feedback tools. They can receive course announcements, grade notifications instantaneously on their preferred devices, and they can easily collaborate with peers and teachers. And that also being said can happen for our parents as well. And the wonderful thing about Canvas is that Canvas, unlike some other programs, communicates seamlessly with other programs. And that's why it's one of the reasons why we decided to choose Canvas, is that we can be able to consolidate and incorporate many of the other programs that we're using into Canvas to develop a one-stop shop for our teachers, for our students, and for our parents. And another question was about being able to be live and to be able to see what's happening in classrooms. That's also one of the benefits of Canvas, and we're going to be rolling that out to our parents as well, so they can be able to keep their pulse on what's happening, and there's no surprises. And we can be very, very proactive in what we're doing as teachers, as administrators, and as parents in supporting our students.
There's
Go ahead, David.
Did you have a follow-up to that?
Nope.
Okay, I just wanted to move on to a technology question about access. The question is, I didn't accept help with technology and tablets last semester, but I definitely need one for this. Will it be possible to gain access? Absolutely. We distributed upwards of 500 devices from the time that we closed in mid-March up to the current date. Some of those have been actually distributed, collected, and redistributed, new ones, because life happens and technology doesn't last forever. So we're committed to providing the technology so that there is no barrier to access. So for families who have a question about getting a Chromebook, who have a question about getting a high-speed internet access device, or guidance to take advantage of free internet access, sign up with our local cable providers, there's a button on the AEA homepage for technology support. And you can go on there and you can send a text message or make a phone call, and it rings through, and we answer those in English and in Spanish. So anything related to this, and I know because our principals and Brad Bachiel, our tech director, the phone rings through directly to their phones. And so we'll be in meetings and their phones are ringing off the hook recently as folks are transitioning back into being focused on the fall. So absolutely, we will support you. And I would like to commend our tech support team that has worked all summer, in some cases has delivered computers to people's homes and has come in to provide these, all with social distancing measures in place. So that's absolutely a possibility.
Right. Sorry. I have a question. Will uniforms be required? We are not requiring uniforms at this time. I think that might be a battle that you don't need to have each day with your child. But there might be times where, there might be Zooms where kids want to wear their uniforms, so we'll leave that to teachers at this time.
There's another question. If we do not return to in-school teaching when available, will our child lose their spot at AEA? So at some point in time, we're going to return to in-school teaching. I've answered the questions, and I've worked with some families who have chosen to go a different path. And if you decide to go at a different path and enroll in another school, of course, you lose your place at AEA. But we will definitely not be disconnecting or kicking anybody out of AEA. If you choose to disenroll and to go to another school, then of course you would lose your spot at AEA.
There's a number of questions about the challenges, the understandable challenges that have come with this pandemic, where people have had their work hours severely diminished and in some cases lost their jobs, and how that's impacted people's ability to pay for things like high-speed internet access, for example. Again, referring to my previous answer, please go to the website. If you can't go to the website because you don't have the internet at home, you can call the front office of either school in English and Spanish. You can leave a voice message, but please leave contact information. We'll reach out to you. Our tech support team will guide you through the process tailored to your specific situation so that you receive both the devices and the internet support at home at no extra cost to you.
Will teachers be contacting parents directly when kids are not participating? Yes. We all have a system for that. Again, we can monitor attendance through Canvas. Teachers will make the initial reach out to parents, and then to follow up, any office staff or support staff will also get involved if need be.
I'll answer one, Mr. Trackus, while you're looking there. Or was I next? I lost track of the sequence.
I'm next, Dr. Shiretta.
Okay, you got one?
Yeah, I got one. There's a lot of conversation about feedback from our teachers, and we communicate with our teachers and get feedback from our teachers every day about best practice, about recommendations for next year as far as scheduling. But we're also very, very respectful for our teachers' time off. So even though that they're involved in our discussions and our planning, we have a very, very transparent system. And we work with our teacher leaders every day, every week in how we develop our plans. We are very, very respectful of our time off. And I think now more than ever, do we need to be able to support our teachers in that? So I don't want to speak for Principal Bowders or Dr. Shiretta, but I know for sure for the last couple of weeks, we haven't been bombarding the majority of our teachers with requests. We've been working very hard with key teachers and our leadership team and our grade level team leads to be able to get feedback and also to prepare. But we've also had months to be able to get feedback and also to prepare for this year coming up. Let's not forget. So I just want to be able to share that with our community. We want our teachers to be rested and ready to go come next month, come the end of this month.
And to piggyback on that, there's a lot of plans that have been issued from different districts, and they give very detailed schedules that no teachers were really involved in the making of. And that was something we did not want to do. Our teachers are back on contract on the 17th. We have been working with, our teacher leaders and those who taught summer school to get feedback. But until our teams can work together and create those schedules, we did not want to mandate that. There's a lot of conversations that have to go on with them also working vertically on the teams because we know a lot of you have more than one child at Einstein. And so our teachers have to have time to collaborate and have those conversations and create those schedules very smartly so that we don't have to keep changing them. And so we know that you guys are all anxious and eager for a concrete schedule. We understand that, but we want it to be done well with as much thought as we possibly can and with as much feedback. So we're going to have to ask for some more patience on that. We have we're close, but we're not ready to provide those exact schedules as of now. Class lists, at least for elementary school, will be posted prior to the school year. We used to post it just the day of the barbecue, so it'll be sometime in the week of the 17th. Just a note that our classes in the elementary school, we tried as much as we possibly could to keep the existing cohorts together that were together last year. So at a 1B will become a 2B, so that group, maybe not, the letter might not be the same, but the group will be as consistent as possible. We know kids move and there might be opportunities for special reasons why students would move from their old class, but we wanted to give the kids that opportunity to reconnect. They already know each other. And so that was taken into play, with the exception of third grade, because second grade goes from 6 classes to 5 classes in third grade. So we've had to reconfigure our third grade class.
I'm just looking at the clock. So we have 4 minutes, so probably maybe 2 more questions. There's a comment that I think is instructive because it gives a jumping off point for framing today's conversation as well as moving forward. It's from a parent that says that my son had absolutely no required live sessions last year at AEA. So I'm assuming that means since the closure, with the exception of a learning lab. And so where I'd like to jump off from that is to acknowledge that from March 15th through the end of June, our AEA distance learning plan was framed mostly around asynchronous learning. And there were some lessons that we learned from that, some lessons about engagement, some lessons about the need for more accountability and grading and those sorts of things. And so the teaching and learning plan that we've created and that's on the website and that we've talked about today is the next iteration of that. So yes to assessment, yes to grading, yes to required attendance, yes to required attendance 5 days a week. And so also yes to live participation. The schedules for that are forthcoming from the respective schools, but we will not fall into this trap of saying, well, this year just has an asterisk next to it and it doesn't count because we're in this extraordinary circumstance. The way we need to think about that and frame it is, we know we've had to adapt. We know that we've had to adapt quickly. We've learned some things over the summer. We've looked at examples and best practices. And so this is the next iteration of the next best version of who we're going to be going forward. And so our commitment, as it says in the plan, is to the needs of the whole child, and included in that is academic rigor. And so we will be committing to that. And we should not be in a situation where a family faces the reality that a child was not required to be live in any sessions. That won't happen. And if it seems to be happening, that's a very legitimate situation in which a parent would just respectfully communicate with the respective principal, and that would be addressed.
I had one asking about elementary school content being taught as if separately as it was in summer school. So to talk about what that is going to look like, and what that means is that our teaching teams in elementary school will be sharing content across the grade, the content area. So Each of the, say, first grade teams, Canvas classroom will be sharing content. Some teachers will be responsible for the English language arts content, the math content, the German content, and of course, all wrapped within the IB, so that single teachers aren't preparing all of those different content areas. So you will see most likely on your Canvas classrooms, teachers from each of the, all the teachers in the grade delivering some form of asynchronous content for your students. So yes, that is how we're going to divide and conquer. And we really wanted to make it more consistent so that we have a consistent template across the grades that reflects who we are also as an IB school. So our IB coordinators are working on that to make sure that that is a big part of who we are. We do not want that to go away. So hopefully you'll see some more consistency.
There was some questions regarding teacher support through PD and training. Just want to be able to go back to March when we let out March 18th. You know, we had provided PD and supports for our teachers in Google Classroom and in Zoom weeks, months before we were out of school. I like to say that we did our very best in those conditions to be able to help and support our teachers to transition seamlessly into distance learning. In any situation, we could always do a better job. But like many people say, there's different levels of storming, norming, and performing. And I like to say that getting through the spring, being able to provide the level of supports for our teachers and training in PD, and moving and transitioning into Canvas, we are committed to providing support and PD to train our teachers the very best we can. And that will be happening the weeks it's going on currently, and also the week dedicated to the opening of school. And there will be a continuum because, like someone has said, you know, a tool is as good as your training and how you use it. And that's absolutely true. But we are fully committed to supporting our staff to being the very, very best that they can be with the tools that we've provided for them.
And with that, we've come to the 1 hour marker on the call, which is what we had committed to. We will be parsing through the, now we're at 93 questions. So we will be sorting through those after this call and learning from them and incorporating some of the answers into the presentations that the respective principals will do on this topic as we drill down and become more granular about the schedules in the respective schools. I'd like to thank the 258 participants that we can see on Zoom. I think we set a single day record for Einstein's Zoom account. I'm not sure if we have more, but that's the most we paid for, so we're not allowed to go above 256. But in any event, thank you to the people who are watching on YouTube as well, and keep your eye out for more communication from us going forward. Please, everyone, stay safe, stay healthy, and we miss seeing everybody in person, and we will be seeing you virtually very, very soon. Thank you.